Good evening, everybody. I'm Sharon Spurlock, Senior Director of Family Education, and I'm so happy that you've decided to join us tonight. Our topic tonight is going to be how to access the Gateway Resource Guide. For those of you that are old enough, you'll can think back to when we used to have those enormous books of resources, and you knew the minute that they went to the printer, they were already out of date. And so I can remember having a binder and I never felt confident about the information in them. So now we have this access to a wonderful digital guide that is something that we can change and edit as needed. So it's typically up to date or as close to up to date as possible, and is going to be filled with great resources for you tonight.
Hello, everyone. And like Sharon said, thank you so much for being here tonight. We're really excited and quite frankly proud of this website. It's been a labor of love for some of us in this line of work. So my name is Tamico Jones. My official title is Director of Advocacy, and I work over at Sunnyhill. That being said, I'm really, really fortunate to work with an awesome group of people across about 4 different agencies. We're called Family Navigators. And so there's 4 agencies that work together to provide basically just information and resources to families, help walk them through some steps and get them connected with services. So that's just a very tip of the iceberg synopsis of who I am and what I do on the day-to-day. I wanted to give a little bit of a background and overview of what this IDD Gateway Resource Guide is, why it's important, kind of how it came to be. So as Sharon was talking about, there used to be all this information out there, all of these materials that you would try to have to keep track of, who does what and what is what and what's Social Security and what's Medicaid and what's Medicare. So a lot of us were together at a couple meetings. This kind of evolved over a few months. We kept saying, isn't there one place where we can just house all of this information? Isn't there one place where we can just put all of the pertinent things that people need to know, specifically to the intellectual and developmental disability community? And there was a young lady at that meeting, and I always give her a shout out. Her name's Madeline Webster. She said, well, why don't you guys create a Google site? So out of that came this website. And so Madeline was kind enough to create the framework, kind of the bones, as we call it, of the IDD Gateway Resource Guide. And then there have been numerous collaborators on it over the past year or two. We officially launched it, I believe, last year. And the IDD Gateway Resource Guide lives on the Productive Living Board's website. And we'll get into who the Productive Living Board is in a little bit, because that's something we'll cover under the site. But it's also its own, has its own URL. So you can find it on its own. And like Sharon said, we will send that out for everyone. But it is owned and operated by the PLB. And as we go through the guide, you will see, Sharon, if you want to kind of scroll down on that first page there. The first page here talks about family navigation. So I kind of gave a brief overview that, there's these agencies that work together and we provide services. So family navigation is sort of at the core of who helps support this website. The navigators are there to, as the site says, give information on systems navigations, resources, advocacy, training. We are here to help guide not only people with developmental disabilities, but their loved ones, friends, families, through all the systems and processes. So as Sharon scrolls here, you will see that there's AADD, Easter Seals, St. Louis ARC, Sunnyhill, and UCP Heartland. So all of these agencies provide family navigation. It's important to note that AADD provides services in St. Louis City, as does the ARC for navigation. And then Easter Seals, ARC, Sunnyhill, and UCP provide family navigation in St. Louis County. That being said, we will help support families from wherever you come from. You don't have to necessarily live within St. Louis County or City to access our services, but we are here. And as we go through this IDD Gateway Resource Guide page, you will see at the bottom of the page, it will say something to the effect of, if you have any questions, please reach out to a family navigator. So let's get into some of the common questions that people might have. So there's some buzzwords on here, right? There's some Department of Mental Health, there's some vocational rehabilitation. So these are just like two of many agencies that people might want to access. There are, therapies, there are guardianship. So Sharon, let's go ahead and click on the how do I pay for disability services question. So this will take you to our funding systems page. Now there's all these icons, there's all these things, all these pictures up here, all these acronyms that might be familiar to you and they might be new. That's okay, either way. I want to point out that all of the pictures on here are hot linked. So if you click on one of the pictures, it takes you directly to that page. So that's something important to note. So that's kind of how it works as far as, the website. Like I said, all the pictures are hot linked. As we go through the site, you'll see there's some pop-outs that are available for you to download at your will. We were going to cover everything from local resources to federal resources, crisis resources, Social Security. What's the difference between SSI, SSDI, Medicaid versus Medicare? How do I access them? All of that information's on here. If I want to get a job, who is VR? How do I pay for this stuff? It's all on this site. It's robust in nature, but there's nothing time sensitive that we put on this site. So for instance, you're not going to see a flyer on here for like a one-time event. What you will see is information on ongoing like support systems or support groups that might be meeting, and then services that are not time sensitive in nature. Let's go ahead and jump over and start going through this fun site.
It's just such a simple site to navigate. I want you all to see that. So the first tab you'll see here next to home is funding systems, and that's divided into government agencies and regional resources. So I'm going to click on the government agencies, and you'll see those same big wigs that we talked about earlier: the Department of Mental Health, Vocational Rehabilitation, Medicaid and Medicare, Social Security, and then Supplemental Nutrition or SNAP. So if you click on the buttons, I'm going to click on Medicaid and Medicare because we had a pre-submitted question about spend down. Now I'm going to tell you, when you get into something as complex as spend down, that's information that you're really not going to find here. You're going to see Medicaid fast facts, because sometimes people get confused. Is Medicaid going to pay for this, or is Medicare? Which is the program that I'm trying to apply for? Which is the one that my family members needs? Can I have both? And then you'll see that there's actually steps to get started. You can click straight on to the application. We'll take you right there, and you can start your Medicaid application. And it's really a fairly simple process. I think people are so overwhelmed sometimes by what's happening. They're afraid to go and just try and apply on their own. But there's this nice online portal, or you can download an application and you can click right through in this one site here to do that. There's also a question about what to do if I need to appeal. If I was denied, it's going to take you to the page for Department of Social Services to explain about a hearing to appeal your denial and walk you straight through that. So we did include quite a bit of information for these kinds of services. But again, if you're talking about something complex like spend down, or you've got an unusual situation related to Medicaid or Medicare, go on to reach out to a family navigator. It's going to take you back to that home page where we started, where you're going to see the family navigation services listed. So I'm not going to go through every governmental agency page, but I think I'll go ahead and start at the Department of Mental Health. We tried to put things on here that are common things that come up for us. For example, that sometimes people call the Department of Mental Health DMH or regional office, because we know that the way we communicate can be very confusing for people with disabilities and their families. So we want people to know when you hear DMH or regional office, this is what we're talking about. And it explains to you what opportunities are going to be there. And then there's a drop down. You've got an opportunity to click here so you can find your regional office and talk to an intake worker so that you can get into the system. There's a link here that shows you what the different types of things that you need to have in place to be eligible would be, so that you can think it through and make sure you've got that. And then there's a financial eligibility link. So in our counties, except for Jefferson County, you have to have Medicaid to be eligible for a service coordination. So that's something that you're going to need to be able to do. And then again, you've got your eligibility. Once you've been found eligible, here's what they'll do. You don't automatically get money. You get access to support coordination, an individual support plan, and support options. And based upon the decisions that are made, that the money would flow past that. Waiver services. I have explained what waiver services are so many times. Here's a great space where you can come in and actually read about the different levels of Medicaid waiver and what that entitles you to. And then we've also included the ineligible piece, which again, just go on back to your family navigator. So those are two examples of how to use the government agency tab on this funding system site. I want to go to your regional resources, and here's the 4 counties that are part of our, I'll use an acronym, ERA, which is
That stands for Eastern Region Alliance.
That's what it is, the Eastern Region Alliance. So if you don't know this, our 4 counties came together a number of years ago to say, how can we be more efficient and make it easier for families to access services and easier for our partner organizations to request funding and submit funding, so that it's not a different process for every county. So we've combined all 4 of our counties together here into this one resource guide. I'll click on St. Louis County, and you can see it'll explain to you what is the Productive Living Board, the St. Louis County Tax Board. It can take you directly to their website to learn more about the PLB, or you can go down a little bit further and say, you know what, I want to look at what's available for my 10-year-old. And if you click here, it'll take you to their website. And then the Productive Living Board has their services divided by age. So you would pick school age, and it would click through to the individual services that are available within that age range. There's adaptive equipment, camp, childcare, facility-based services, family support, in-home services, otherwise known as respite, socialization, and therapy, and then the list of agencies that provide each of those services. So this really gives you freedom of choice to be able to look at this and see what's available to you here.
While we're on this PLB page, let's go ahead and show the folks where they can access this Gateway Resource Guide directly from the PLB site. I think that's important information for them to know. So if you go over to those 3 bars in the upper right-hand side of the PLB site, and you go down to the Get Information tab and you hit that plus sign there, you'll see, ta-da, there is the IDD Gateway Resource Guide. So if for some reason you forget, just know, go to the PLB site, start poking around up there in the upper right-hand corner, and you can find it under the Get Information tab.
Tamico, we've got a couple questions, and I'm going to answer one, but I'd love for you to chime in as well. We've got somebody asking about, with all these navigators from different organizations, how do I know what navigation company to choose? And I would say that in a lot of respects, it doesn't really matter, because we're providing the same type of service. It's a very individualized service where we're going to find out what you're identifying as a need that you want want some navigation and coaching with. We'll set some short-term goals and we'll work with you throughout the length of time that we can help you move forward with that goal. So if your goal is to get Medicaid waiver funding, we may not get you to the end of the path, but we're going to get you all the way to the point where you've done all the paperwork, you've done all the advocacy, and now it's a matter of somebody else making the final decision. There are, however, times when it can make more sense to use a different agency. For example, if you have a really strong relationship with one of the agencies, I think it's nice to work within an agency that knows you and your family members. So utilize those agencies. If you are working with somebody that is aging in the city, both the Association on Aging and Developmental Disabilities and the St. Louis ARC work with individuals that are aging. So I would choose one of those two organizations and instead of another company. Tamico, how are some other ways that you would look at that as far as who you might tap?
So within the navigation community, there are 10 of us, about 10 of us that work together very, very closely. We're very fortunate that we've got some very knowledgeable people that are doing navigation. Each of the agencies does it fairly similarly. It's just really a matter of getting connected with a navigator. And then if we feel that there's someone else that we would like to tag in who might have a very strong background in a specific area, then we're going to pull that navigator in from another agency to help support. So for instance, Sharon's been talking about waiver services. That happens to be something that I have a very pretty intense background in. I worked as a case manager for a while, so I understand the funding side of things pretty well. So oftentimes when people are in crisis, those are the cases that I end up taking, and then I work alongside with my colleagues who might be at another agency to make sure that families are getting all those supports that they need. There's some other questions coming in about, are there navigators in St. Charles County? And then the cost of navigation. So I would say that for navigation, the cost of navigation, it is 100% free. It is paid for by your tax dollars. Hooray, hooray. And so we're pretty fortunate for that. As we were saying kind of earlier, we will support families, even if they live in St. Charles County. We will try to direct you back to people in your area that can help you and assist you, depending on what your needs are. But I mean, we are more than happy and willing to support people outside of, St. Louis County and St. Louis City.
I would also add that in St. Charles County, they do have direct funding from, I think it's from the state for this type of family service, and they have a contract with FACT. So FACT operates in St. Louis County and St. Charles County, and I believe in St. Louis City in some educational advocacy capacities, but they also expand into broader areas of family support, particularly in St. Charles County. We do have times when some of us have more people in navigation than others. So there are times when we might not be able to meet your needs at the St. Louis ARC. We're going to refer you to another agency and make sure that you get that process started. And we have one other question about navigation. We have talked about having a shared database because I think it would be so wonderful. I think there's some confidentiality concerns about that, and frankly, logistical concerns as well. So no, if you were to start off in navigation with the ARC when your child was really young, and then you wanted to flip over to Sunnyhill to address a Medicaid waiver issue as your child is getting out of school, that could be a situation where we would never know what the past history had been. If you choose to disclose that, we would be able to share information with a release so that we could let people know what past history is, but you don't necessarily need to have that. And I think I saw this question before, and if I'm wrong, It's okay. I'm going to answer it anyway. Navigation is based on a need that you have. So you can receive navigation services multiple times. So for example, you might contact us because you're going into your first IEP meeting and you really want to go in confidently. And we might set up some meetings with you to help you plan in advance, to prioritize what your goals are, talk about what that meeting is going to be like, review a couple do's and don'ts as far as what the law says that you're allowed to do and how to get the support. And then when you have that meeting, our navigation is done because we've met that goal. You might then call us back another time and say, that you're really interested in your family member getting connected to inclusive recreation. And so we might spend time helping you identify what those resources are and figuring out how to advocate for your child to have access to those services. So it's not a one and done. We do want it to be a time limited service because we're not here. We want to support you to be your best advocate. We don't want to be your advocate or your therapist. So it's important that families take advantage of this opportunity, but know that we want you to be confident as you move forward that you've got the skills you need to take action.
Yeah, there was another question about, I don't know if you saw it, Sharon, asking if someone can have a family navigator and be enrolled in another program. And
Heck
yes,
yes.
yeah, absolutely yes. I would say the majority of people that we support in navigation are absolutely enrolled in other services. So that's the beautiful thing about navigation, like Sarah or like Sharon was saying. You can access us. I tell people as much or as little as you would like. And the whole goal of navigation is to absolutely connect you with other programs if you're not already enrolled in them. So that is what we are here for. We encourage that. We say, come on, and let's get going. We will ask you to, like, kind of when you start meeting with us, we ask you kind of some basic questions. And some of those questions might entail, like, I like to ask my people if you are plugged in with another agency, because like Sharon was saying, sometimes it is just easier to stay, within an agency that's already supporting you. That being said, we're absolutely pushing that everyone has provider choice. So don't feel like if you're accessing a service at one agency and they also have navigation that you absolutely have to stay with them. That is not the case. We want you to pick the provider that you feel the most comfortable with for the service that you're accessing.
There is one situation that I would encourage you to avoid. There are times when Tamico and I find out that we've been doing navigation on the same issue with the same family. And so I think it's difficult. Sometimes I am concerned that families are just making sure that they've covered all their bases, but we want to make sure that everybody has fair access to this service. So I would encourage you to pick an organization, go through navigation. If you feel like your needs aren't being met, then you can ask that navigator if they could bring in some additional support, or you could close out your case with them and start again. But I think it's not a good use of time for us to be doing the same thing with the same family.
Awesome. So we have funded services here. So you're going to find most of these at the local level, but there's some crossover. Let's go to that first tab under community living. So here on the community living tab, you will see some acronyms and some wording. So there's pre-ISLA, there's ISLA, there's ILAF, and supportive housing. These are so the pre-ISLA and ISLA and ILAF funding and services are available at the local level. These are for people. So pre-ISLA services are available for individuals who have completed high school, not including individuals who are like in a VSP type program. These are for your individuals who are maybe wanting to explore moving out on their own. This program is designed for people to build life skills and work on those things to transition into living independently in their own apartment, not an apartment that has like a staff person living with them. So the pre-ISLA services are available for those individuals who have completed completed their education. And like I said, they can enroll in it if they are doing like a VSP program, as they would like to call people, like super seniors, like 13th grade, because people with developmental disabilities can access education to the age of 21. And they can be in that program for up to 2 years. After they complete that program, which again, you do not have to participate in that program, but it's available for people who would like to. There is ISLA, which is Independent Supported Living Arrangement. There are, I know, several hundred individuals in St. Louis County alone that access these services. So this is this is a support service for people to live independently in the community. So these are people that are living on their own independently, away from like a parent or a caregiver of sorts, typically, an apartment or home, those types of things. We see people who they're pretty independent that live at this level. They can receive up to 50 hours of support a month. There are 5 agencies, I believe, that provide this in St. Louis County. So it's a pretty cool program. As far as finding the community living services, again, on the PLB site, as Sharon's clicking through here, you go to the PLB site, and there are those agencies right there: Bridges, Easter Seals, ARC, Sunnyhill, and UCP. And basically, in that program, you have staff people that come in and they teach skills for like money management and meal preparation and laundrying and all those different domains and things that we need, like health and safety, to live on our own and be successful. So there are those types of community living services available in St. Louis County, St. Charles County, St. Louis City, and Jefferson County. Let's go to support systems. I think that's a good one to go to. So support system types, we have family support, childcare, advocacy, educational support, in-home support, also known as respite. Facility-based support, which is respite outside of the home. These are services that are also available at the local level and state level. Should you want to be connected with them, we would encourage you to reach out to a navigator. We don't have anything specific linked on this page, but the navigators are here to connect you with services that are appropriate for you. So let's go to employment training. I think that's a good one. That's a hot topic of conversation. So there's different types of employment training. Again, there's youth training and then adult training, like pre-employment, and then employment supports, job coaching, those types of things. Again, we should be able to find those on some of these local sites. So we have youth and adult. So we have Easter Seals, Preferred Family Care, and good old St. Louis ARC for our youth services. And then adult, and this is just funded through the city board specifically. So this would be for people that live in the city. They can get local funding for youth employment and adult employment through these agencies here. Then there's also other types of employment, such as like sheltered employment. As you can see, the agencies listed there that are funded partially by the city board, and the supported employment through those agencies listed below. So yeah, that's and that again would be for our folks that are living in St. Louis City. There are other agencies available for folks that are living in St. Louis County, with a little bit of overlap with a couple of the agencies. So they might support folks across more than one county.
All right, so we had a question about funded services other than independent supported living, and that's where you're going to need to go into your alternative funding. So our regional resources, our county tax boards, they are really looking at more limited types of services. So they're going to be funding your in-home supports like respite and your shorter number of hours residential kind of a service. If you want the more extended service, you got to go back to the Department of Mental Health and look at what they're offering as far as residential funding. And that's again going to take you down that deep dive into a Medicaid waiver program. So I said I talk about this all the time, so I'm just going to jump in and talk about it here. There are 4 waivers, and they pretty much cover the same services. I'm not going to break that down. They have different parameters by waiver. To get a waiver, except for the children's waiver, you have to start with straight Medicaid. So even if you've got other insurance, Medicaid is more than insurance. It's your access to case management and your access to waiver funded services. So I'm going to let Tamico talk in a minute about the children's waiver. I'm going to talk about the other 3. So Partnership for Hope waiver, I'm going to click on what it says here because I think fewer people understand Partnership for Hope. It is a waiver that is a partnering waiver. So it's funded by both the state and the county tax board and the federal government for that matter. And it pays for all of these types of services. It is the smallest dollar amount waiver. So I think, is the cap still 15,000 for that one?
It's like 12,300 and some change.
Okay. So it's not a ton of money, but for some people, it may fully address your need for family peer support or occupational therapy or some dental services. So you could apply and have access. If you get a waiver, you don't just get a check for 12,300 and something dollars. You go through the process that was identified on this web page where you would complete an individual support plan defining what your needs are, identifying how to meet your needs, and then that plan would go through a utilization review to determine your need and eligibility for the funding, and then also whether the state has funds to deploy. As you move up the dollar ladder with waivers, your community support waiver is a capped waiver at a higher cap. It's somewhere in the $25,000 range, so that you could fund something like a day program or more extensive services than Partnership for Hope. But when you want more funding for residential services, more than that 50 hours a month that you can get from the ISLA program, you're going to need to pursue a comprehensive waiver. And this is often a case where navigation is really key because comp waivers, the state does not put very many of them out on the table every year. It's a situation where they're weighing your needs against the needs of every other person with a disability in the state of Missouri that's requested a comprehensive waiver. So it's very challenging. You might have to work on the process for some time. There are steps we can help you take, including advocacy steps so that you can articulate exactly why it's important for you to get it, so that we can get you before the right people, so that we can help you if you're not getting the response you want from your support coordinator. But ultimately, it's that comprehensive waiver that would give you access to other options for residential. And do you want to talk just briefly about the children's waiver?
The children's waiver is known as the MOCDD waiver, or sometimes called referenced as the Lopez waiver. So the children's waiver is really unique. Whereas the other 3 waivers, the comprehensive community and partnership for hope waiver, you have to have straight Medicaid, specifically like what they call permanently and totally disabled Medicaid. For the children's waiver, this is a waiver for children up to the age of 18. And one of the qualifiers for it is you have to have been denied for Medicaid, or you have to have, if you're approved and you have a spend down that's like absurdly high, say like upwards of $2,000 a month, that would be another criteria that could potentially approve you for this waiver. There are roughly over, I believe, 300 slots for this waiver statewide. Typically, once you have this waiver, you have it until the child ages out at 18. And this is for children who have very, very high support needs. You'll see a lot of kids that have medical complexities on this waiver. But it's really cool. You keep your private insurance, and that's a criteria that you have to keep it in order to keep the waiver, but it gives you Medicaid. And not only does it give you Medicaid, but Sharon, if you wouldn't mind clicking on that, the Missouri Children's Waiver, it gives you Medicaid, so you have dual coverage on your kiddo, You also have access to all of these awesome services. Ones that we see utilized a lot are environmental accessibility adaptations. So like, and home modification, vehicle modifications. That right there has been life-changing for a lot of our families that have kids. It helps, it gives you up to $10,000 a year for any types of home modifications that you might need, or $20,000 every 2 years for a big project. And that's also available in the other waivers, I should say. But it gives you access to personal assistant services, which are also available in the other waivers. But that personal assistant allows someone to come in and help take care of your loved one or your kiddo, whether you're at home or not at home. Assistive technology, ABA services. So all of these services are available on top of having Medicaid, on top of keeping your private insurance. So what that looks like for families is if you have a kiddo that's very medically complex, you end up going from typically paying a lot of money out of pocket for medical supplies and such to almost $0. So it's an absolute game changer for a lot of the families that we support.
And I'll say the other group of families that typically get access to this waiver is somebody that their child has got significant behavioral challenges, because they're really looking at, can you keep your child at home if you have this funding? And so somebody that is in crisis, that needs applied behavioral analysis, that may need crisis intervention, additional respite beyond what's provided in other ways. So those are all things that you can get through the waiver.
Yeah, you have to actually, in order to qualify for the other waivers and DD services, you have to have 2 out of 6 functional limitations. For this waiver, you have to hit 3. The federal criteria is 3 functional limitations. But again, a navigator can help you go through all this. We don't expect you to walk away from this webinar like retaining all of this information. We are here to help you along the way.
Before we leave funded services, I think I'd like to just hit on each tab so we can talk about, like, I want to make sure people understand the variety of things that are available.
Yeah, and I wanted to go back to that funding systems too before we go over to the other resources, and
okay,
especially hit on the VR page, because there's some important stuff there that I think some of the families might benefit from knowing. If you scroll down a little bit, we have the forms on here. Not only can you find your local office, but should your child be at that age, even if they're an adult, and they would like to access VR services, also known as vocational rehabilitation. These are people that can help put employment services in place or help make determinations if your loved one's appropriate for like a day program. Those forms are already preloaded on here. All you got to do is pop them out, download them, or email them. So I just want people to know that that's here. I know a lot of our transition age individuals are young people that are in the SSD system. They have come on here and utilized that page to get those forms that they need. So
thank you. I appreciate that.
mm-hmm.
Okay, so I showed you community integration. The funded services in this area are camp, and that can include some summer camps and also our R&R camp, socialization activities at a variety of organizations, and retirement support. So we're not going to go into each and every one of these because you guys are going to go back and play with the system and see what's in here. Tamico, let's talk about professional services.
Awesome. So professional services on here, we have counseling, therapy services, and then adaptive equipment and AT, assistive technology. So we're pretty fortunate. There's some great providers locally and at the state level that provide these things. I know St. Louis ARC has a great AT program, assistive tech program over there. But there's many agencies like the center that has assistive tech. They also have adaptive equipment. Again, St. Louis ARC and UCP, they've got some assistive technology and adaptive equipment, and Variety. So those are your providers in the St. Louis County area that provides those services. If you're asking, like, I think it might be a good thing to give some examples of what those things are. People get a little confused with adaptive equipment and assistive technology. So assistive technology is pretty broad in scope. And Sharon, it is escaping me. What is the name of your program that you have at ARC?
Life Tech. Life Tech is a technology resource center that we're operating in partnership with all the other agencies in the region. So we're funded across all 4 counties for individuals 18 and over who do not have Medicaid waiver, because you can get these services through the Medicaid waiver through other providers. So if you want Life Tech services and you're eligible, we'll support you to let us know how you could, talk about the things that would make you more independent. If you could do more cooking in your home, if you could take your own medications without having to have somebody else dispense those to you. If you want to be more independent on transportation, but you need some assistance to remember routes, we would sit down and strategize with you about how you could be more independent. We'll look at the current things that you have in place. Do you already have a cell phone? Do you already have a tablet? How can we help you to use those things? And then we will work with you to get the equipment you need to build your independence. And we are so fortunate the grant includes funding for the equipment. So we've bought people Apple Watches, we've bought people special air fryers that you can program with recipes, transitioning from your tablet to the air fryer so that you can cook more independently. We've bought Ring doorbells. And then the coolest part about it is that once we get you the equipment, we provide support for up to 1 year to ensure that you use your assistive technology. So we don't want something to be sitting on the shelf. So we'll come on and help you understand how that Apple Watch can help you pay for things at the grocery store, how you can set up alarms on your cell phone or existing technology and use it in more efficient ways, how to program your Alexa so that it actually does something more than remind you to take your medicine in the morning.
Do you want to move on to the other resources tab, seeing as it's
That sounds great.
awesome.
So we wanted to have a space just to add other things that we thought were things that we regularly talk to individuals and families about, that we wanted to be able to have a one-stop guide to go to. And so here's a laundry list of those things. So the first one is advocacy, because we want family advocates to feel strong, but we also want our self-advocates to have resources. So a number of organizations have self-advocacy groups, so you can look here to see what's being offered. Easter Seals has this really cool self-determination project with free classes. St. Louis ARC has a weekly self-advocates group. UCP has a self-advocates group. We have People First of Missouri and an affiliate locally. So there's St. Charles chapter, there's People First of St. Louis, and then our regional chapters. So we are rich in our advocacy resources for people that receive services. And these are pop outs. So as you can see, you can pop them out, print them, share them with somebody else. It gives you the information about who to reach out to, so that you can get connected. Crisis support. Tamico, you want to jump in on this one?
Sure. This is my area here. So we have crisis support for a variety of crises. We have mental health resources on here. We have behavioral health response if someone is in like a behavioral crisis. And we have NAMI. So NAMI is for people who might have a mental health diagnosis, SSM, and then St. Patrick's Center. And then we have PCS behavioral health. So PCS is really unique. And it's a service that some of my families have utilized. They have this thing that's called ESOS, Enhanced Systems of Support. This is free of charge. Anyone who is in a crisis, if they have a loved one in home that's in like a behavioral type crisis, you can contact PCS Behavioral Health. They will send someone out to give some in-home training to families. This is not intended to be a long-term service, but maybe like sort of a triage type situation for someone who might be having some behavioral concerns. So they're a great one to reach out to if that applies to you or someone you might know. So we have just some other resources on here. The food insecurity one is one that I really love. That goes to the St. Louis Area Food Bank. If you know someone that is having food insecurity, you can go on there and you can research food options in your area, free food, those types of things are on there. Sexual assault hotline is on there. And then Gateway Human Trafficking is the next one down. They are now a funded partner here, like through the some of the alliance partners. So that's a really important one if you know someone that in the disability community that might be at risk of being trafficked, or you have some suspicion. They're a great one to work with the population that we support and getting them assistance. So there's a lot of crisis support on here. A lot of mental health support on here, even ComTree's on there, which supports Jefferson County. St. Patrick's Center is in the city. Just a pretty broad scope of resources. Again, I would highly recommend if this fits you or your loved one, please talk to a navigator. We've got connections at some of these places. We can work our connections to get you that full support that's needed, and make sure that your loved one is given all that they deserve to have access to.
Yeah, and one of the things I love about this page is that it's really not disability specific. It's resources that are part of our community. And, you know, you talked about the food bank. I'm always amazed at how many different programs are out there that are providing resources, even at like our public library.
They had to give away today.
Do they have a lot of great resources? So
Yep.
it's important for families to know that they can find some of that on this page. And if they can't find what they're looking for, they can come right to a navigator. Educational support, we've got kind of all of our players around town here. Special school district, and this again is going to link you right to their website when you click on their logo. And they have a really great website that has a bunch of information for families. So if you've never been on it, check it out. City Schools also has a lot of great information. St. Charles County, we've got all 5 of their districts here that you can click through to get straight to their schools, and all the different Jefferson County schools. But there's also other information for educational resources. Impact is the Missouri Parents Act organization. They help with IEP and any kind of issues related to education and educational rights. FACT, I mentioned earlier, Family Advocacy and Community Training, provides information and education and support to families, primarily around educational access, but also around just basic family support. They have a really cool peer support program where they pair parents with other parents who are trained to offer emotional support and resources. So here's the individual county information. I'll just click through St. Louis City here and see what it says. FACT offers, tells us about the different things that they have available. And there's their family support partner, where you're going to be paired with another family member who is going to understand your situation maybe better than other people might.
And Sharon, I wanted to mention on there when you were talking about the school districts, we tried our best to hot link all of those districts that you see on your page to their special education departments page. So if you click on like Orchard Farm, it'll take you to their special education page. So it doesn't just take you to the district site, it takes you specifically to the special ed department.
I love it. This is why Tamico's here tonight, because she really has been integral in putting the information directly into this. And because of her incredible knowledge about what families need and want, we've been able to fine tune it like this. So that's super awesome. I'm going to go further down here and just say Navigate STL Schools is on here. That's a great organization that we partner with regularly to help families in St. Louis City pick out the right school for their family member. The UMSL Succeed program is on here, which is post-secondary inclusive education opportunities for people with disabilities. Think College is a national organization. It's a clearinghouse of information about post-secondary opportunities. Our community colleges, our Department of Education. So it's a very robust page to look at educational resources. We talked a little bit about assistive technology. I don't want to skip over this, though. I'm not going to talk any further about the ARCS information, but I mentioned that you couldn't have a waiver. If you do have a waiver, you have access to Missouri assistive technology, and each waiver has a very generous annual cap that you are able to spend up to a certain number of dollars every year on assistive technology. Technology first is kind of the practice of thinking about how can technology help me be more independent. Does this link through to the state technology first page? Oh, it does.
Yep, they're all
This
hot
is so
links.
great. So I particularly like this interactive smart home link that's on this page. It'll show you some of the different kinds of technology that you could tap into. This real successes is videos of people with disabilities using technology. What a cool way to be able to talk with your family members about whether they feel like technology could be a resource for them. So I just think there's some great stuff here. Let's see what else. St. Louis Health. That's health equipment lending. And then Adam Morgan. Adam Morgan has so many cool programs where they will assist people to get access to a free iPad or sensory equipment. Disability Cocoon is a nationwide technology hub to keep you up on the latest technology. Gray Matters is one of the oh gosh, what is it called? Remote supports. They provide remote supports, which means that they've got a system for a person to live more independently because there's built-in sensors in the home. So that you can just go on and on down here and look at all the resources that are available. Is there anybody else that you really want to highlight, Tamico?
Not necessarily on there. ARIA is a little local, and Variety is for kids 21 and under. There are some income requirements there, but they do provide a lot of adaptive equipment and tech for families. So yeah, I think you kind of hit the highlights on that one.
I'm going to answer real quickly. Yeah, you're right. We've got a comment that there's so much information. It's really a cool site, and we're so proud of it. We were asked about whether Succeed was the only local post-secondary program. I would say certainly our community colleges have lots of great resources for people.
The Succeed program is pretty unique, though, and and I would encourage you to reach out to UMSL and talk about like how their that program works as far as credits and diplomas and things like that. At the community college level, it's different than the Succeed program, where if I'm not mistaken, the Succeed program is like a certificate program, whereas if you go through like the access offices at the local community colleges, that individual could receive accommodations. For services, but they would still have to meet like the standard requirements as far as credit hours and things like that to get a diploma.
Yeah, actually, brand new, hot off the presses, Succeed is still called Succeed, but they actually have two other programs that they run at UMSL. So they are now part of the Office for Inclusive Post Secondary Education, which includes Succeed, Succeed Plus, and the Link program there, which I won't go into great detail about. If you're looking for something other than UMSL, though, Lewis and Clark across the river has a very well-established commuter program for education. And there are other programs within the state. There is a website called Show Me College which is a new website that covers our regional partners. So those are all available as well. And these are the kinds of things that you can find out more about from a Navigator. So I'm in the family and peer support section, and I'm just going to have a brag on the ARC right now because I think that we are overdoing it in this area. We have a group for everybody to find their people. So if you have a family member, a kid 7 and under with a disability or a developmental delay, we've got a group for you. We've got our self-advocates group. We have a group for families with transition age folks. We have a group, it's on hold right now, but it's been an interesting group, and I'm sure it'll come back, for parents of individuals who use augmentative communication. We'll be starting our parent cafes again in January. We have SIB shops for brothers and sisters who have a disability. And then we have a caregiver of older adults group. And there's actually more groups than this that aren't even included here. So there are many, many resources for people to find their peers. And there's research that shows that families and individuals that feel connected to other people that share some of their life experiences feel more confident in making decisions, feel less isolated, and have better outcomes. So these are things that are important. All right, the financial and legal. Tamico, do you want to do a little chat through this?
Sure, we'll go over this. There's some really awesome information on here that I feel like a lot of families could benefit from. So we have a link on the MoAble accounts, which is here in Missouri. It's pretty awesome. MoAble accounts allow you to have a little bit of financial security, put some funds away for your loved one that might have a developmental disability, and it's protected in the sense that it doesn't count against you for an asset with when you're trying to obtain Medicaid for them. So that's a really big thing to note. You know, Medicaid is income-based, and some of our families don't meet the criteria because they have too many assets tied to their loved one. So you can kind of protect some of those assets in an ABLE account. I think that the guardianship, supported decision-making, this is guardianship and alternatives. This is such an important thing for families to kind of read up on. This goes into all the terminology, what's what. So we have guardianship, supportive decision-making, power of attorney, and I believe there's like conservatorship on there. It has all the definitions of what those things are. And then there's this awesome guide that's, I believe, 40-something pages long. Sharon, are you able to scroll? I believe you can pop that entire booklet out if you so choose, and you can read through it. You can read it on your own. You can share it with other people. 64 pages. There you go. It's just an awesome document. It talks about what all the different terminology is. It's just great. Then we have, of course, our legal services and Missouri Protection Advocacy. These are free services to individuals who might need some legal support. Options for Justice is another one I love to touch on. They're funded through our local Senate Bill 40 boards. Options for Justice is for people that have developmental disabilities who happen to be justice involved, meaning that they've had some, sort of interactions with, charges brought against them or criminal stuff. Individuals who are justice involved that have developmental disabilities can access options. And then we have Arch City Defenders and the Missouri Senior Hotline. So again, there's just a lot of legal stuff here. If you're needing some legal support, there's all these resources to help you.
Unfortunately, there has been an uptick in people that have unstable housing or unhoused that also have intellectual and developmental disabilities. So we want to provide those supports to people. St. Louis City Housing Authority, the Equal Housing Opportunity, Beyond Housing is a really great local organization that really helps families to try and stabilize their housing and includes renters and home buyers within their programming. So all of this stuff is in that one place here. Unfortunately, definitely, if you are unhoused, there's really the only way to go through the system now is to go through a homeless coordinated entry. So you go through the 211 or you go to the community council and you go through this link and kind of get on a waiting list to try and find a bed. So those links are here for people when they are not sure where to turn. That's available to you on this page. All right, so this is our seasonal resources page. DASA is the Disabled Athlete Sports Association. I think I got that right. They've got a summer camp. The Jay's got summer camp opportunities, Life Bridge. So lots of leisure opportunities are available. We want our partners at the Recreation Council to be recognized on here. If you've never been to the Recreation Council's webpage, go. There's all kinds of guides by county for you. They are funded with voucher services. So if you want to be able to get some support to go to a camp or support to take a vacation program through Sunnyhill or the Arc, you can go to the Recreation Council. So our partners are recognized here and easy for you to get to. St. Louis's ARC's Neighborhood Experience Program, which is a summer teen employment training program. The Sunnyhill Overnight Adventure Camp is in here. So UCP's camp and summer sports, and then the various activities through the Variety Club, the Y, and then just some flyers about different programs for summer work. So lots and lots and lots of stuff. We'll need to add new items as we move into fall and winter activities, but you can see it's nice to have a one-stop just to see how many things are out there for people to look at. And then last but not least, we've got COVID resources. So at some point, hopefully we'll be done with all this, but if you're still needing support to talk about what is appropriate distance, what is the appropriate way to wash your hands, how can I explain the vaccine to my family member in plain language, all these resources here are here for you in addition to your county health departments, and you know, anything else we might lay our hands on, we would make available to you here. All right, so we told you we really believe in collaboration. And in fact, I'm going to brag on our navigation team. We won an award from the state last year, and it was for being such a great collaborative team, because so many times I think people think our organizations are competing with each other, and we just really think there's plenty to do for everybody. So we work together as much as we can. We're great collaborators, and I think that we spend a lot of time together coming up with new strategies and new systems to make things easier for families. So we made this site together, and then Tamico and the PLB implemented it for us. Over the last year or so, we've been creating maps for families. So let's see if Tamico can share.
I do. And I also have, I can give you a little overview of our flyer as well that we have. So we've created as a team, throughout the different agencies, these mapping tools. So when we were on the website, we were talking about DMH, and I think this one is really important to talk about. Not only do we have the information on the website, but we're creating these educational tools, or mapping tools as we're calling them. This is one of our mapping tools for DMH, and it talks about just the different processes. So referrals, who can refer. And then we have step number 2 is the intake process. So you do your application, screening and assessment. They determine eligibility. And then we talk about if you're eligible. And then if you're not eligible, then what happens? And then what other services are available, such as PLB funded services, non-waiver supports that are available. Step number 3, eligibility requirements. So in order to be eligible to receive case management through Department of Mental Health, also known as the regional office, you have to have one of the following diagnoses. So intellectual disability, cerebral palsy, epilepsy, head injury, autism, learning disability, mental, physical impairment. Has to occur before 22 and be expected to continue indefinitely. So this can't be someone that just like falls and gets hurt per se. and that's going to recover from that injury. So, and then you also have to have, I was kind of talking about earlier, the MOCDD, that kids waiver, where you have to have 3 functional limitations. Well, state standards are 2. And then these are the different areas: self-care, language development, receptive, expressive language, learning, self-direction, capacity for independent living, and mobility. And then, so once you're deemed eligible, and again, navigators can help you through all of these processes. I would say the majority of what I do on the day-to-day is just being a liaison between families and their support coordinators at Department of Mental Health, or even the intake team. We do a lot of gathering documentation behind the scenes to ensure that we have exactly what they need. We know what they're looking for. We speak the language. So if this is something you're interested in, please reach out to one of the navigation teams. Or if you have access to DMH currently, but you don't feel that maybe you're utilizing them to their fullest potential, please reach out to us. We'd be happy to work hand in hand with you all and get you what you need. So once you're eligible for DMH services, you were assigned a support coordinator, and then they develop, number 5 is develop a plan. And then we talk about number 6, your support options. So just kind of how DMH works. It's just a kind of a easier, more plain language way to understand the processes involved with DMH. The QR code, if you scan it, takes you right back to the IDD Gateway Resource Guide, which is awesome. So there is that.
One thing I like, I'm going to just interrupt and say,
Yeah.
one thing I like about these forms is that it doesn't matter how knowledgeable a navigator is. Just looking at this form is a little bit anxiety producing for me, because there's so much information. And so I'm a real visual person. I love the idea that when we meet with you and we talk through all of these things, we can give you this follow-up document that's going to really help you remember, oh yes, she said that this is what I'm going to have to prove as far as substantial functional limitations. That navigator explained to me what that means, but here it is again as a reminder, or here's what I can expect when I get into the individual support plan component. So I think in a lot of ways, you all will have access to these documents, but to me, they're really that great follow-up tool, so that when you walk out of a meeting with us or you turn your computer off, you get a tool like this, and it's your follow-up doc.
Correct. And most of these we've also like kind of made twofold, where they're 2 pages, or the page 2 is like would have these boxes on it. They would just be like lines for you to take notes. So you can like quick reference back, like, oh, I need to make a note about eligibility requirements, where we're just going to have it ready for you, where you can take a note on a similar piece of paper and then you can just quick reference it. Trying to make it as easy as possible for families. So there's that. So this is our flyer that we are now promoting. PLB was gracious enough to kind of help us get some materials printed and design materials. So when we go out to, say, resource fairs, or we do a lot of speaking engagements, we do a lot of professional development. We were very fortunate to do some professional development at some of our local hospitals with doctors, neurology departments, things of that nature. And also with a special school district and their staff. We've done a lot of professional development with them. We've kind of created our own branding as navigators, and these flyers that have all of the agency's information kind of in one spot, which I think is just a beautiful thing. So this just talks about what navigation is. And again, we've talked about that time and time again tonight. And the reason we've talked about navigation so much is that website and navigation literally go hand in hand. It's just really, that's a really important takeaway. Of course, you can access that website on your own, but please know that you do not have to go it alone. We are here to help you. No strings attached. We just want to make sure that you get connected to all the things that you're entitled to. So we have all of the partners on here, the St. Louis County partners. I should lean on that. Easter Seals Midwest, St. Louis ARC, Sunnyhill, and UCP Heartland. So you have everybody all kind of in one concise location.
And I guess I want to just add, as you were talking about navigation, I think one of the other things that makes the navigation at the ARC different than the other organizations is that we've got navigation by age range. so that we can focus on some expertise around early childhood, focus on some expertise around aging. Some of the other organizations have more expertise around autism and behavior. Easter Seals is really strong in that area. Obviously, cerebral palsy and adaptive equipment kind of things. UCP is good at that kind of stuff. Tamico's already said she's a master at systems navigation, and is super good at that, as well as supporting families with a lot of medical kinds of support needs. So we really do know each other's strengths, and we want to be able to support you. I hope you guys will take advantage of this web page, share it with other people, because we want you to feel confident to pop on the page, go and pull up a form for Voc Rehab, or go back and reference guardianship or alternatives to guardianship, and take care of what you can on your own. And then if you need a hand, call us and let us know. Thanks so much, everybody.